Stas himself begins to discover there's a deeper magic that is actually very accessible to all of us. It's when we're walking down the street and we decide, oh, I think I'm going to cross the street. And you cross the street and suddenly, oh my goodness, you meet something you haven't seen for 10 years. But if you begin to recognize and follow those invisible breadcrumbs that you were following almost unconsciously, oh, I think I'll cross the street. These things are everyday experiences. And so City of the Magicians is slowly getting back to recognizing this. And so this is common to our lives. So their magic is the same as ours. So you will recognize as a reader, oh yeah, that's happened to me. But if we become more alert to these things, our life becomes more magical. And it's not really magical at all. It's what eventually comes out in book 3, the sentience of reality itself. And if we partake of that, our world becomes richer. But there's a whole lot of skullduggery and factions and jostling for influence and power. That's the story arc that leads you through. But underneath it is this concept of, yeah, the world is magical. And if we rely on this, our life itself will partake of it and be more magical.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, podcast for authors. And when I love to have Canadian authors on the podcast, that's even better. That's like a bonus to have somebody on the show as a guest to talk about their journey. Multiple books from this author that we can chat about today. And Peter's on the podcast. And Peter was so kind, he actually sent me a copy of one of the books, and I have it right here. So Peter's book is in my hands. Very excited to have Peter on the podcast. And excited to hear the journey between all these different books that he has to offer you as readers. And we'll talk a little bit about his story of becoming an author as well. Peter, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Thanks very much for having me.
Excellent. Tell everybody, Peter, where you are in this big world of ours.
I'm in the Vancouver area in a suburb called Burnaby.
Nice. Now, I've been to BC once, and I need to go back because I went out there for work. They sent me out there for a day. I was only there for a day.
Oh, my goodness.
I landed in Vancouver. I went up to Squamish for a barbecue place.
Oh, nice.
And then I came back to Vancouver for an overnight shift for my job where I was working, and then I flew out the next morning.
Oh, my goodness.
So I didn't even get a hotel room. I was just there and gone. So, but what a beautiful place.
When you went up to Squamish, did you take a little side trip to Shannon Falls, which is on the way to Squamish? Fantastic.
Yes.
Now, what part of the year were you there?
It would have been spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
The fountain there, not the fountain, what am I saying? The waterfall there would have been spectacular then.
Oh, yeah.
In the summer, it's a bit drier. It's not nearly as spectacular, but yeah. Okay. Shannon Falls.
It's gorgeous. It's so gorgeous there. Yeah. But yeah, so no, it's a beautiful place. I'm very jealous here in Ontario. We don't have scenery like that, right? You travel, you see the ocean on your left and the mountains on your right. It's just so cool.
Again, what part of Ontario are you in?
I'm near Niagara Falls.
Oh, St. Catharines.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's we have a big hill and lots of water, but when I stood there in front of the mountains and stuff, and I'm just like such a gorgeous place and good people.
Yeah, Shannon Falls isn't quite the same caliber as Niagara Falls, but
yeah, there you go. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about your author journey, Peter. Like, what was it for you that kind of was the spark that said, you know what, I feel like I'm being drawn to be an author and to write and share stories. What was it for you that kind of gave you the interest to become an author?
I guess when you're younger, you read things that you think, oh, this is really nice. Maybe I can do the same. Like poetry, short stories, fairy tales, that sort of stuff. Thankfully, all of that is lost and gone. But it stayed with me. But it wasn't until I got into later years that something that had been bothering me for a very, very long time goes back to when I was 9 years old. And I was standing in the middle of thousands of little white crosses stretching to the horizon, and in the Normandy War Memorial Site. And I was stunned. I was very fortunate. I lived in France for 3.5 years. My dad was in NATO, And we went to an international French school for NATO kids and diplomatic corps. But the interesting thing, on the first day of school, my mom said, there was a war, Germany lost, you don't talk about it. That's it. So it was basically the natural courtesy that you would have in the schoolyard, because there were German kids and Dutch kids, French and Belgian and from England and whatnot, and Canadians. But then the nice thing about Europe is that you can hop in a car and drive anywhere, drive through
Right.
5 countries. And so the second year we were there, my parents clearly wanted to see Normandy, the D-Day landings, all that sort of stuff. And so my mom was trying to exercise my poor arithmetic skills, like say, as we stood in front of various crosses, how old was this one when he died? I don't remember those numbers very much, the ones that ended in 1944 or 45. But then she said, and how old was this one? And the date was 1917, a number I'd never seen before. And his birth year was 1890 something. I said, Mommy, the numbers are wrong. And she said, that's because he died in the First World War. I was stunned into silence. There were 2 wars in the same place. And so we got in the car and drove off to the Vimy Ridge Memorial, which is spectacular. I never saw it. I refused to get out of the car. It's had enough. All that commemorated death, all those little white crosses, and I knew something was wrong. And so they thought I was having a childish sulk and left me in the car. And I felt this amazing sense of vindication, this inarticulate certainty that just I knew I was right. So when we came back to Canada, I studied Mahatma Gandhi's pacifist approach to things, Martin Luther King's essays and his speeches, following the passive resistant type of approach. But the critics had interesting points to make, that how can this noble stance be effective against leaders who have no concern over noble ideals, like Hitler, like Stalin's Gulag, or Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution. They just run roughshod overnight. But it was successful in India, which was fascinating. It was not entirely successful because India eventually divided before it got into Pakistan and India and Bangladesh, and thousands died as a result. But the inherent ideas are inherently sound, but it's not a complete answer. So I felt this needed to be explored in the City of the Magician series. So that's the opening premise. What does pacifist, non-violent, egalitarian city-state do to prepare for a barbarian invasion coming in 6 months? But the other interesting thing is that there's an underground movement plotting to collaborate with the same barbarian. What do you do?
Wow.
So that's chapter 1.
Okay, so for you then, starting a journey as an author, who kind of did you look to for inspiration from an author perspective? Was there a writer that you enjoyed to read?
There were several. When you're growing up, I loved all the Oz books. The first 6 Oz books were a thrill. I tried to write one of my own. I don't know, 11 or 12, right? And then Somerset Maugham's short stories were very interesting in terms of construction, having a beginning, middle, and end, and reverses and surprises and something. Wow, a punchy ending. And then things like Isaac Asimov's Robot, and particularly the Foundation series, the whole notion of a great long evolution of humanity and a plan. And then, of course, the Dune series. And then I got into nonfiction, mostly histories and biographies. And Kelly's book called Eleanor of Aquitaine and the Four Kings, an amazing biography of this powerful woman who strode the world like a colossus.
No, see, because I love finding that out, because I think that as we read, we pick up on things that we enjoy from different authors, and they become part of who we are.
Yeah.
They become part of our kind of our secret recipe to who we are as authors and writers. I see it in music, because I'm a musician, that musical inspiration can come from different directions, and you kind of put them all together as a mixture, and it becomes your sound as a mix of other sounds.
Yes.
And for authors, I can kind of see the same thing happening, and your inspirations have an influence on you as an author as well.
Absolutely. So I have a couple of very strong women based, I think, probably on that initial seed of reading Eleanor of Aquitaine and the Four Kings. Because I have one character. She's an astronomer in a culture that has no telescopes. So she measures her skies with her hands. So this is about 10 degrees. This is 10 degrees. This is about 15. And so if you can put 18 fists, if your hands are relatively average size, into the horizons, if your horizons are level. So which also means you can put 36 fists into the entire elliptic, which makes me wonder if this is where we got our notion of 360 degrees in a circle.
Oh.
No, so,
Okay. Oh, that was interesting.
oh, yeah. I have an answer. I don't have an answer to that question, but it's a very interesting resonance between 36 fists and 360 degrees. So anyway, so she wants to travel south to see skies that she's never seen because she's memorizing the skies.
See, no, I love anything to do with history, and I love the fact that we have tools today and we can't replicate knowledge that has happened pre those tools. So you have people using the stars to line things up on the ground and make maps and understand the world. And here we are with all this technology and satellites and everything, and we have all this knowledge and ability, but there's people we're learning from who had none of those resources.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. We take a look at, say, things like the Mayan calendar and how they would count in these, to us, really complex ways, and yet there are people who could memorize the calendar and would know a date like that.
So all these pieces then kind of find their way into your writing then? All these things that interest you?
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah. Like the language that is used in the City of Magicians is very similar to things like ancient Egyptian, Chinese, Mayan, and sign language. They're sort of pictorial language. And interestingly, the longer they last, the more they evolve, they start using the same sort of rules, which I find really interesting. That there are similarities between all four of those languages.
And then trying to put all that together, it's like a gigantic puzzle then.
Yeah.
To figure all this out, right?
Yep.
All right.
Ongoing.
Okay. So for you as a writer now, you have multiple books for us as well as for readers, kind of understanding how these books kind of work together from a reader's perspective. Is there a book that we need to read these in order, like are they standalone? Tell us how that works.
They're not really standalone books.
Okay.
So Threat is book 1, Within is book 2, and Quickening is book 3.
Okay.
And I'm working on books 4, 5, and 6 for the second trilogy.
Now, are we following a central character throughout the books then?
Several central characters.
Okay.
A young man and a young woman. They basically represent the two factions in the city that are aimed at Purdu, the barbarian. But the name Purdu, I love languages, and since how languages can create a sensibility and a direction of thought and culture. And I found Hittite, and this sounds really odd, but that's where Purdu's name came from. There's a lot of UR sounds in ancient Hittite. And the name of Sas is the Greek plural for the word your. And so I have a whole bunch of dictionaries that I would look at and just say, oh, there's a name. Hey, perfect. But Blaulia, named the young woman, she was very shy to emerge, even as a gender, and certainly not as a name. Finally, she eventually revealed that she was female, a young woman, but her name took months to click. And I think it took about 6 months before the name Lalia came out of the blue. No dictionaries, no language, nothing. Lalia, boom. And once she did, the name just crystallized the whole plot arc around her. But there are still quite a few surprises.
See, now I've always found that interesting how authors create characters out of thin air and create a world around this character, naming your character. As parents, when we have children, we get to name our human beings that we created. And that's like such an amazing thing because there's identity in a name as well, right?
I mean, perfect about you, you know, you're going to have a child, and you say, oh, there'll be a Mike or Michelle, or there'll be this, that, the other. And then when the child emerges, sometimes those names go out the window, and oh my goodness, they're this. Oh, who would have thought? Yeah, and it's, I would say, the same naming dynamic that is happening with authors. It's a very interesting process.
It's kind of like they adopt their characteristic of their name. My youngest son's name is Sawyer, and he's so adventurous, and he's so he's got no fear. He'll do anything, right? And it's kind of like interesting. He lives up to kind of a Tom Sawyer type character. Just in the name, right? And as soon as we saw him, we're like, oh, he's a Sawyer. Like, you just know.
But was that I bet you that wasn't the original name you had for him.
We were always kind of toying with names, yeah. But again, to your point, when you finally meet this human and go, oh, okay, I know who you are.
Right, Sawyer, as opposed to Tom, Dick, Harry, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Fascinating.
And that's an interesting part for an author then, too. Any other tips for an author around naming your character and building a world around your character?
But let them emerge. Let them let the writing give birth to them. Sometimes when Lalia's name did not approach, I used a different name which I knew wasn't right. It was just a placeholder, and then when the name clicked, then oh my goodness, and this and this and this and this happens. But I don't know why she was shy. But she was a long time coming, and she's a very principal character. But she just sort of said, So just be patient with your characters, and you will find that once they emerge, suddenly a plot arc will be immediately accessible, and then you'll be writing till 10 and 12 and 2 in the morning. But yeah.
Do you find yourself as an author being led by your characters, where you have an idea of where you want to go, but they kind of seem to pull you in another direction at times?
Oh, yes. Sometimes things are fairly well set. I tend to write to endings, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. So, and that's what I like about the destination is there, but all the digressions and the surprises and the reversals and the miscommunications and whatnot are very interesting. But some of them will. At one point, I had Sass, my main protagonist, my main male protagonist. She's found out that he's been badly manipulated, even though he's wearing his citizenship on his sleeve. He's going to be faithful to his, loyal to his integrity. But he finds out he's been badly manipulated, and he's coming home, and he's going to go upstairs and sulk in his room. That's terrible reading. So, and I'd already partially written that out. I just said, God, that's tedious. So he comes in, and then without any warning, Sass, someone is calling him, and he looks up, and the balustrade on the third floor is his aunt. Come upstairs. I need to talk with you. And he thinks, oh, what is this going to be about? And there's another load that's much better. He gets another thing imposed on him that just adds to the weight of his distress that he's been manipulated. So it made a much better chapter because this character suddenly came out. I knew she was going to be there, but I didn't know where she was going to emerge from. And she said, I'm going to put my foot in the door right here.
Kind of plant her flag and be part of the story and join in, right?
Yeah, so for writers, let your characters have their voice up to a point. Don't let them kidnap you and take them off into different directions. But yeah, sometimes the characters will definitely tell you, this is better than what you have in mind.
And that's got to be fun for you as an author, then, to kind of feel led in those moments as well.
Oh, yeah, the surprises. If an author is surprised at where something is going, the reader is going to be surprised as well.
Do you like to hide little things in your writing where somebody says, hey, I'm reading your book, and you say, what chapter are you in? They're like, oh, I'm in chapter 4. You're like, oh, wait till you get to chapter 6. Because when you get to chapter 6, it's going to be like this thing. Do you like to hide little things in your writing?
I notice if you're, I don't want to do it too deliberately, but
Yeah.
sometimes things will emerge and I will go back when I'm re-editing something. Um, I just say, oh my goodness, it was there all the time. And so that's even better for me as an author and for a reader that I knew there was a hint there, but even I didn't recognize it.
Hmm.
It was a really interesting thing with Lalia, which, and too much of a spoiler, but
Yeah.
something she says very casually comes to haunt her in the second book.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, now that's interesting. And I think the one thing that's nice for readers when they find an author who has more than one book in a series like you have, there's this kind of this buy-in where I'll start with book one and then I'm like, I'm hooked. So I'm going to continue the journey of following the story. And to know that you have more to offer than a single book for
Yeah.
me, that's kind of interesting. That really brings people into your world.
You're all invited.
Is there any thoughts that you have when you start writing in series like this? Because I would think if you're going to write a book, you'd kind of have a big picture for that specific book. But when you start writing multiples, how do you kind of plan out the story to kind of arc over many different books then?
That was interesting for City of the Magicians. It was going to be just one book, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger until my publisher just said, "Oh, this is too big. It's going to have to you're going to have to have a smaller book." And it underwent what I like to call a literary mitosis or a cellular division into three books. So the one book eventually, very neatly, I was surprised by how neatly it separated into three books. So there is a beginning, a middle, and my goodness, consequences that no one has thought of. And once
Okay.
when I had finished the book, The City of Magicians, when it was a single book, the last chapter was such a surprise for me. I knew what the ending was going to be like, sort of, and then I wrote it out. I thought, oh, this is pretty quiet. This is pretty tame. And the little writing voice said, okay, you've got that out of your system. Now write this. And wow, just blew me away. And I gave it to my partner was reading each chapter as they came out. And when he read this last one, he just, oh my goodness, don't change a word. And I didn't. But looking back on in my journal, I noticed that 5 years later, I've been editing the entire manuscript up to the same standard as the last chapter. So that was the process of writing. So
Interesting, because the name of my show is Living the Next Chapter. And
yes,
as you're doing this, you're living it as you're writing it then.
yes, absolutely.
Interesting. Okay. Well, there you go. That's an interesting point of view. I like that. What kind of feedback have you had from readers for your books?
It's been pretty good. I've had some very positive reviews. I also won Threat Book One, also won the gold medal for literary fantasy at the Book Fest at the LA Times Book Festival, and I'll be there last week of April on Sunday morning from 10 to 12 in LA to sign books. It's one of the largest book festivals in North America. 150,000 people, something like that.
That's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah. And but the book two has also been submitted for the same prize for the competition for the spring. It should be announced a week or so before I'll be down there. So it'll be interesting.
Well, we're putting out good thoughts around that's going to become a reality for you as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. So you're continuing to write beyond the 3 books that we have currently available to us. Where are you kind of going in the future as a writer with your books? Can you give us any little insight without giving away any spoilers?
Yeah, I don't take too many spoilers, right?
Yeah.
Well, the unexpected things that happened in book 3 is a surprise to everyone, including the council strategist who is trying to expose the underground movement, get the barbarian on side, all this sort of stuff. The ending of book 3 gives too much away, but it opened the portal. It opened the fact that there are more books coming. Even I was surprised. I just said, "Oh my goodness, there are more books!" And the little voice said, "Yep, keep writing." So, and there are some chapters that are completely done in books 4, 5, and 6. I don't have the overall plot arc just yet. Some people
Okay.
are still waiting to emerge. One person has really emerged, and quite stunningly, quite a big surprise for me. Um, and they are, here's a little clue. They are in the latter part of book 3.
Oh, so you can kind of get your antenna up and your radar up. You're
Yeah,
reading book
yeah,
3, right?
yep,
Okay. Just to be aware. Okay, I like that. See, no, that's interesting for a reader as well.
yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing about writing for the writers out there, um, one of the most useful things I did as a writer was I wrote for magazines. I wrote for NUVO magazine, the Canadian publication. Excuse me. And they liked what I wrote because I wrote to specific word counts and I got it in on time. But I wrote and I highly edited it so that they didn't have to touch a thing. So it was a very good exercise. When I wrote gardening columns, I wrote gardening columns for about 11 years for 2 different magazines. Same sort of thing, word count, and it had to be in by the specific date. It's an excellent discipline to write cleanly, sharply, with a good point or several points to make, and usually a little bit of a wow finish.
So those deadlines are really helpful. I talked to a journalist who covered sports, for example, and it didn't matter what was happening. You had a due date. It had to be in on time to be published the next day. So the whole idea of having writer's block wasn't a reality for that writer because you have a deadline. You got to hit the deadline, right?
I would admit that some of the gardening columns did sort of slow up for me from time to time, but usually I would have some time to adjust. And sometimes, on occasion, I would have to throw something out and just say, "This is not working. Let's take another subject." And I was lucky in that way that my editor said, "Write whatever you want. It has to be such a length and such a time." And so I had a fairly carte blanche to write what I wanted. And
Okay.
but even that, sometimes being told you have to write about this. Okay, that's even better.
When, as a writer, what do you do in those moments where the inspiration's not flowing? You feel it's a little forced. You feel like you're having to, it's like hard work for you to write. Is there anything that you do to kind of reset yourself? Or
Absolutely.
how do you adapt that?
Best thing, when you're writing something as big as City of the Magicians, you can always work on something else. This is far more interesting. This is far more fun, or whatever. But if it really freezes up, then read a book, preferably out of your genre, outside of your genre. So you just take a real break, and you're not writing about sports or about gardening or whatever, but you're reading something about something entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then when you come back, you're refreshed. There's a different vocabulary jostling around, and yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, journaling is not writing, so don't think you're continuing that way.
Oh, let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I keep a journal. I've had several journals over the years, and the current one I started because I wanted to keep an eye on the seasonal changes in the gardening. I also worked part-time in the garden center for many years, so I was able to keep notes in this. But then I gradually threw in, I wrote a chapter in a couple of hours. I was amazed. So I also started itemizing my writing that was going on with City of Magicians. But keeping a journal or a diary is not writing. It's a very different process. So if you say, I have to write 5 to 8 hours a day, do it on the novel or the series or whatever you're working on. But journaling is not the same thing.
Journaling does have benefits.
Oh, absolutely.
As far as, that kind of repetition and routine and being in a thoughtful place, right?
Well, if you read some of the diaries, you will see how repetitive sometimes they are. Come up,
Right.
have my breakfast, give my exercises, walk the dog. Again, but you've been doing this for 14 years.
Right.
If you read the famous diaries like John Evelyn and Samuel Pepys, fascinating stuff. But again, there's all these repetitions. I've gone up and had my waistcoat done there, and the wife was doing this, and went off to the Navy Yards to check on on the on the uh, on the jute and the hemp that was necessary for rope making, and fascinating insights. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think anytime that we as authors can keep writing, keep capturing our thoughts, is a good thing. Is there any way that you kind of keep track of ideas? Do you have like a system to track these thoughts as they come to you in the moment?
Oh yeah, I keep all my writing notes. I have it's the pen in there.
Yeah.
But I have these German notepads.
Yeah.
And I write notes down when they come to me. I slip this into my back pocket when I go out, and it's beside my pillow at night. And but when you can see this,
Yeah.
it's a type of shorthand I developed when I was at school to take verbatim notes.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's proven very useful. So this one's number 34.
You have them numbered.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you see moments of your inspiration then showing up then in your books? Is that how that's working for you?
Sometimes there are images that are there, and they I don't even need to write them down. They're just there, and then I will write them in, and then as the book develops, sometimes the event will get pushed ahead. There was one event that I thought was going to happen early, and bit by bit it got moved further and further until it ended up very significantly and very powerfully in book 3, in the latter part of book 3. And it was something that had been there for 20 years. It's perhaps not a spoiler, but it sort of is. It's you're in a fire, and a flyleaf, a burning flyleaf of a book comes to you, and you grab it, and you pat out the flames, and you read a dedication to someone that you know, but the book itself is lost. So anyway,
that's intriguing.
But that image was there, and it was solid, and it was unchanging. But its initial position got moved forward and forward. So
I like that. I like visuals. I love when an author can write in a visual way, because then you can see as a reader, you can put yourself in that scene and see yourself in there as well. I love that kind of perspective. Excellent. So I would ask too, Peter, the one thing I would be interested in for the readers, because I want the readers listening to the podcast to know with beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is my book. This is my author. This is my book. But I also want them to go, but I also know someone else that would enjoy this book. So not only am I going to buy a book, I'm going to gift it to someone. Right. So if you could talk to the reader then, big picture for the series so far, can you kind of give us kind of that foundation then so that we can make that buying decision that, oh, this is my book? What is the big story? What is the big idea that you're hoping that we're going to see over the first 3 books?
Well, the City of Magicians has become complacent over the years. They have a reputation for magic, and yet the magic has been so slowly atrophying. There's telepathy and foretelling of future, but usually like doing cards or flipping coins or whatever. But Stas himself begins to discover there's a deeper magic that is actually very accessible to all of us. It's when we're walking down the street and we decide, oh, I think I'm going to cross the street. And you cross the street and suddenly, oh my goodness, you meet someone you haven't seen for 10 years. But if you begin to recognize and follow those invisible breadcrumbs that you were following almost unconsciously, oh, I think I'll cross the street. These things are everyday experiences. And so the City of the Magicians is slowly getting back to recognizing this. And so this is common to our lives. So their magic is the same as ours. So you will recognize as a reader, oh yeah, that's happened to me. But if we become more alert to these things, our life becomes more magical. And it's not really magical at all. It's what eventually comes out in book 3, the sentience of reality itself. And if we partake of that, our world becomes richer. But there's a whole lot of skullduggery and factions and jostling for influence and power. That's the story arc that leads you through. But underneath it is this concept of Yeah, the world is magical. And if we rely on this, our life itself will partake of it and be more magical.
The magic surrounds us. It's there every
Yes,
day.
absolutely.
Right. Just becoming more aware of it and more receptive to it as well.
Yeah. There's I think it's a Hindu expression that, or maybe it's a Buddhist, about a fish is not aware of the water it swims in. And
Right.
and us not being aware of the sentience of reality around us.
Okay, so everyone that has a fish right now is going to be looking over at it going, are you aware that you're swimming right now and you're surrounded by water? Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
And
Wow. To be more aware, to be more open, and to look for those magical moments, I think. That's a great thing. So for the readers then, Peter, I know I've had your website up. I've been chatting. I love your website. Can you kind of take us through a little bit about what we're going to find on your website for the readers? And as far as connecting with you, I always want to make sure we establish a great connection between readers and authors, because that's really important to this show. But take us through your website a little bit. Tell us what we're going to find when we show up.
well, my my publishers, Tellwell, they designed a wonderful website for me. I'm still learning how to add things to it. Like book 3, Quickening, is not on it just yet. And I'm slowly learning how to use Instagram. But those are the only social medias I have at the moment. The email address, you can put messages on the site, as far as I know.
Yep.
And the book is available certainly on Amazon and all the usual places you can purchase books. It's also available as an ebook. And if you happen to be in Vancouver, it is in the Robson Chapters Indigo store on the Robson Street in Vancouver.
Beautiful. We'll have to get a book signing for you there as well and get people to come and meet you.
Actually, I've had one there. It was very successful. I was stunned. I ran out of all my books, but it also happened to be the Taylor Swift's last concert, and the place was jammed as people were waiting to filter down. And there were so many Americans that were there, all over the place, not near the border, but. And there was one family with their daughter, and they had bought tickets for all 3 concerts. And this was the 3rd one. But they also bought a copy of Threat.
Of course they did.
Yeah. So I guess that makes me a Swiftie.
Well, Taylor is almost as popular as you are, Peter. So that's a good thing.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
I love it. So, okay, Peter, as we leave, I'm really curious, beyond writing, I know that's a big part of your life. Again, the name of my show is Living the Next Chapter. So I like to ask how you are living your next chapter, whether that's around your writing or what's happening for you personally. But how are you living your next chapter?
My next chapter currently is responding to the marketing, which has been sort of tricky for me. I'm sort of quiet and reclusive, and I'm going to say shy, but as I say, reclusive. And this is a new adventure for me to be speaking with you and having various interviews, going down to LA to sign books, going off to a book signing at Chapters Indigo. It's all fun. So I don't know why I was reluctant. So bit by bit, I'm losing my concerns and forging forward.
Excellent. And then a little shout out to the amazing people over at Tellwell. You have set up a great connection for me, and I really appreciate that. But to let other authors know about their services, their team, anything that you can tell a fellow author about working with this company in particular?
Yes. For 5 years, I tried to find an agent. There's a publication that comes out usually in the fall called, in this case, the 2025 Literary Guide, Guide to Literary Agents. It's a big, thick book, not cheap, and you usually get it at libraries. But I need to get my own. And for 5 years, I would send out query letters to various agents and agencies, and you have to follow the instructions precisely. If they want 50 pages, you send 50 pages. If you just want the first page, you follow their instructions. But I had to write so many query letters very specifically to each agency. got hardly any responses except for automated ones. And I think out of the 5-year period of searching, I got 3 real answers from very interesting and concerned agents. But usually, oh, this is that looks very interesting, but it's not suitable for me at this time, et cetera, et cetera. So I eventually thought, I'm going to have to self-publish. So I started looking around. Most of them, a lot of the self-publishing places do not have a complete, for me, inventory of their staff, their policies, the prices are always out there. Oh yes, we will provide this, and it'll cost you this much. But when I came across Telwell, I saw the people. They showed the editors, the illustrations, the owners, the CEO, where they were located. In this case, they were located in Victoria. So for me, that was a hop, skip, and a jump. So I got on the ferry and went over and met them. And that sealed the deal for me. And I said, oh, you have to be my editor. My editor was Simon Ogden, whose father had a whole wall of language dictionaries. And I thought, it's one of my favorite things is that, okay,
Right.
you have to be my agent. And he was wonderful. But the people were great. And if you check their website, you'll see their the various people. And I like seeing that.
Yeah.
And it just gives you a sense of family commitment and their background and their success stories.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some work with them and some other authors from Telwell. So thank you again for opening the door to that conversation, Peter.
Yeah.
Some great people. I've already had some great emails back and forth with them already. And I love that they're helping authors. That's great.
Yes. Well, they launched me. They helped me design the covers. I had full command, but their suggestions were pretty much all spot on. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, yeah. So thank you to that team over there for helping Peter and the other authors associated with them. But excited to have this conversation, Peter. And I know a lot of the authors I talk to, they're not like big media people. They love to write. They love to lose themselves in stories. And the idea of getting out there and meeting people and talking about what they do, it's not their most happy place to go. They'd much rather go write.
Right.
But the fact that you've made time to do this and get on here and talk about your work, my job here as a host of the podcast is to put you out in the platform and encourage the readers listening to come and support you. And not only when they buy the book, but to leave you a great review on the sites where they're buying it, if they're buying it online or in person, to let people know why this book and why all of your books are so important to them as readers. That's one thing that we as readers can do on behalf of our favorite author, is to support them with those reviews. So I always kind of encourage my audience to do that. And so you coming on here and giving us your time is very appreciated. And I'm looking forward to seeing where you keep going as a writer and the amazing things that are coming up for you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Everyone, for all information for Peter in the show notes as well. Go over to his website and make sure you let him know that you heard about him on the podcast. And if you want to meet him in person, make sure you follow his website as well. He'll have information there letting you know where he's going to be next. Peter, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks very much. Happy reading.
Awesome. Happy reading. Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, Again, thank you for listening, but you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.